Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneurship Matters. My name is Alicia Wilson. I'm Vice President for Economic Development for Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to hear from two of the biggest names in the interior design industry, Tiffanni Reidy and Ajia Monet, who I am going to have the privilege of interviewing today, but all of us are going to get to be in a conversation with them. So I'm going to invite them to the screen, give an introduction of them, and they're going to launch right into the conversation. We know that successful businesses, successful entrepreneurs are not built in a day. It takes multiple failures, many successes, a lot of grit to make it happen. And these two women who are on Entrepreneurship Matters today are no different. Tiffanni and Ajia, come on camera. I'm going to give you their bios, not do justice to it, because I just realized I've been in almost every place that they've designed, which I was like, who's the designer? Who is, and I didn't even know. So amazing, amazing work. So let me introduce them and then we'll launch right into the conversation. So Tiffanni Reidy is a Baltimore native, is a multi-hyphenate creative whose work ranges in and between interior architecture, creative direction, graphic design, photography, and publication design. Her design studio, Reidy Creative, focuses on interior architecture and takes emphasis on renovation design in both the commercial and residential realms, while her collaborative projects include unique collections with local artisans. Welcome, Tiffanni. So great to have you on today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Second and not least, Ajia Monet is the principal and owner of, pronounce it all right for me.
It's Oblige.
Oblige. I was going to make sure I got that right. Oblige Interiors turned Oblige Interior Design Group. Monet, a 30-year-old, wow, so young, self-taught interior designer, has been making steadfast strides in the competitive industry, and she is doing so by way of her natural creative talent, passion, and collaboration. With no schooling or formal training, the Maryland-based designer was able to build her own company, Oblige Interior Design, and it has been quite a positive and pivotal journey. We're going to talk about that today. It's been 7 years since the birth of her design business, and she and her team have diversified their efforts by expanding services, revenue, and reach. Her company is recognized and highly sought for their approachable, modern, contemporary Californian design aesthetic in both the commercial and residential markets, servicing the DMV and beyond. Welcome, Ajia. So great to have you on today.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Pleasure. So let's start and talk about your journeys, because we have the audience watching today is a wide range, and I've already said hi to a couple people in the chat, but others who join us, welcome. But what inspired you to become an entrepreneur? So I'll start with Tiffanni and then Ajia, and then go from there. So what inspired you, Tiffanni?
I went to design school and in DC, and there was a big focus on office design, and I knew that I didn't actually want to do office design. And I started doing residential while I was still in school, and then was doing it a little bit in Silver Spring when we lived near DC. And then when we moved to Baltimore, I actually decided that I wanted to do restaurant design as well. And through kind of making different connections, when I left my last position, I was able to get into commercial. So I do a mix of both, and I knew that doing exactly the thing that I wanted to do and the type of design I wanted to do meant kind of going out on my own.
So many of the entrepreneurs we talk about autonomy and being able to stay true to their craft, especially when we talk to creatives. Ajia, how about you? What inspired you to want to be an entrepreneur?
So my journey was a little bit unconventional, totally opposite from Tiffanni. I actually had the pleasure of growing up with a dad who actually is an entrepreneur, who owns a restaurant business, franchise. I mean, not franchise, but he owns multiple restaurants. And it's so funny when I talk about the story, he hates it to this day, but he understands it's my story because it kind of came from like, it was like an aha moment, having worked with him in his businesses for some time. I truly felt like I was overworked and I was undervalued. And I mean, I'm working 68 hours a week. My guy, he was not the guy that's gonna come in and like be hands on deck. He's like, y'all got it. And I remember just being so burnt out. And I was like, I could not take it anymore. I mean, he was getting Facebook messages from customers like, this girl is like, your body had rights over you. I mean, I couldn't put a smile on if I tried because I just wasn't happy. I mean, a lot of that comes with just knowing like, being valued and appreciated. And it was a lot. So therefore, that actually led to an argument between him and I, because we are like so much alike. And, he would always say, and people like all the time, like, he was like, this says, Sharice, when you get your own business, you can do what you want to do, and run it how you want to run it. But until then, if you want to get into, I think he said something like makeup or homes, designing homes, then you can do that. And it was like complete in that moment. And that statement was like an aha moment for me because, we don't come from, where I come from, that wasn't something that I grew up, of course we saw HGTV and things like that, but I had thought about it in a career sense. So when he started, it was like a light bulb. It was like, okay, that day I quit, literally in the midst of that, kind of was something like, he said something to me like, you're not valuable. I can get anybody to do what you do. Probably out of frustration. I don't think he truly, met it. But at the same time, it kind of like, put something inside of me to make me feel like put the batteries in my back to kind of figure out, dig into that and figure out what I wanted to do. And that day it was history. And I went steadfast on that goal of like, how do I do this? So that's kind of like the short version.
No. I think that's helpful because I mean, there's so many people who are probably sitting in a job and they're like, oh, I'm burned out, but I want to go out on my own. And what hearing your story inspires them. I'd love for you both to take us through. So you have an idea. Clearly you're talented, but you started a business. You didn't go into someone else's business. So what were the steps that you went through to start your business? So you're talented, you've got drive, you don't have a business yet. So how did you go about starting your business? I'll start with Tiffanni and then Asia.
When I first started designing, I actually did work for another business. I worked for a furniture store. And in doing that, I was able to get the experience to work with clients in their homes and have a real understanding of like what it takes to project manage and see something through from the design into the installation. And I think seeing that and understanding like what I could bring to it from my own like design understanding gave me a little bit of knowledge on like how I would want to do things. And then I think just talking to people and finding out, oh, they need help with this space, and I could help them. And I think it just kind of started naturally like that, where I was helping people that I knew through other friends or other colleagues, and it became something where like I was doing that so much that I wanted to do it all the time. And so I think for a while, when I first started out, I wasn't sure that I did want to like create a formal business because that's always really scary. But it just became something I was so passionate about. And especially because I had like been practicing it and like been in school and just knew that it's what I wanted to do, because it's not my first, this isn't my first field. So I think everything was leading to that moment. And when I first started, I just had a couple of clients, and I figured out that like that's what I wanted to keep doing. So I just kind of kept looking for work and kept trying to network with people to find more opportunities to design.
Excellent. I wrote down what you said and I put it into 5 different points of what you said of how you went about it. First, you worked in someone else's business, which we hear over and over again, really understanding what it, how to work with clients, how to build out what you want in the business, how you know what you don't want in the business. 2, I can't remember my notes, market research. You talked with people. You really tried to understand like what are their needs? How could you help fulfill them? You said it in a different way. I think it was just like plain market research, which every great corporation does. The third thing you said, you helped people, which help build your clientele, right? So your product, really you honed it through helping people. 4, you were passionate about it, doing it all the time, and then really use the power of the network to really think about how do you take something to scale. Beautiful points and great nuggets for everybody that's watching. How about you, Asia? What did you do? How did you go from passion, clearly talent, to a business?
I think I pulled a lot of, definitely market research, but I think for me, so look, again, being unconventional, I was 23 when I started the business. So had not been exposed to the world of design in any form of way outside of like the average, person with the HGTV and things like that. So, but everybody knew I was a creative. Like, I was that person. My mother was a gypsy. We moved around a lot. So like, we always had to find, make a home in different places. And so you could see that. And I know that's where my father probably got the statement where he even came from. It was like, okay, everybody would come to my places. It was a, super, different. You wouldn't even expect it. Like we could be in the heart of the hood and you'd be like, what, And so for me, I had to, and then I also, what happened for me when I quit that day, I went back to work actually for a little bit. I had some goals and I was like, hey, I already kind of got my feet wet. I went back, I had been at the post office about 5 years on and off. And so, also, I feel like those experiences working for, somebody else's business, working, same with the post office, like my grandmother retired 30 years. I could not do it. I cannot do it. So I just took all of those experiences and bottled it up and kind of, tap into like, one, what am I looking for? Like, what does me building a business look like for me, And so, what do I want to feel? How do I want to feel, and, a big thing that I did was I tapped into a lot of like free resources. I was on every webinar I could think of that was free 99 because I'm like, I don't, whatever. I went and did a lot of Google researches to see in my city what, what interior designers were offering, what their services look like, what could I do differently to supply demand that was probably, not being fulfilled. And so I took those things and then I kind of just started within my own community and was like, hey, like, this is something that is new and fresh for my community per se. So I know that, it's likely for a lot of people to patronize and want to be a part of it. Because again, we grew up knowing like that service is something that is a little bit, it's a luxury service, I guess, best to put it. And so we weren't exposed to it. And so I kind of started with a friend and I was like, hey, let me do this. I do this for free. And, that allowed me to kind of like marketing was a big thing. Instagram was totally free. It was like really in the earliest stages where you didn't see it all day, or, on Instagram, and, 2,000 followers was a lot, back then. And so every time that I made merges with these people that I would do, I was still balancing work in entrepreneurship. And so at some point I realized like, hey, I can't keep trading my time for money. I could make more money if I, had more time to do, what my purpose is and what I'm, what's filling out my cup. I couldn't get to work on time. I remember the day I quit the job completely, I literally was late and I was like, I just can't, I can't move, so that's kind of like what I did. I just did a lot of research and tapped into, resources around me, people that I knew, and here.
Excellent. I took down 6 points that you made. You stated, you probably don't think you said those, but I'm going to recap them for the folks who will take notes every week on this. First, you quit your job, went back to work to start your business, which we hear over and over about how entrepreneurship doesn't have to, it can be a gradual, right? It's a gradual, and that's what you talked about. Second, you did market research. So you started to think about like, what does the market look like in this vein? Three, free 99 is, that's my favorite number, but really looked about gaining knowledge through free resources, really soaking those up. Four, offered to help others. So you and Tiffany, just alike, y'all give, it's like the candy in the candy shop, giving it away for free, and then people buy the whole box. So in that way, building your clientele. Five, marketing to others, harnessing social media. And six, really, I love how you put this, like trading your time for money. Like you realize at some point there was a tipping point. And so I want to go to that one. And I know, don't worry, I see all of your questions on Facebook, those of you who are tuning in there. I also want to tell other folks how they can participate in the conversation. You can put your questions or your comments in the chat on Zoom, or those of you who are listening on the phone, you can text your questions in 22333, type JHUWL in the message, and I'll get all of those and weave them into the conversation. One question that we had to come in on Facebook was, what made you confident? Both of you talked about this. What made you feel confident enough to take the professional pivot into starting your own business? Because it's scary. But was there a moment? Was there a statement? Was there like a light shining and like brightly it came to you? What was that moment?
For me, it was the business that was continuously coming in, right? So, one project led to the next project, which led to the next project. And it was quicker than I expected, right? Yeah. So, when you start, I think the good businesses is when you're problem solving. And I felt like I had found that niche that it was like, okay, I still have to start from somewhere, but these people are actually buying what I'm selling. And so that was all the confidence I need. I mean, I'm just a confident person anyway, but I knew I had it. But that just, that kind of just put the cherry on top. It was like confirmation, like, hey, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tiffany, how about you? What made you say, I can do this?
I think it was the same thing. It was kind of like you work with a client and they're really happy at the end, and you want to have that feeling again. Also, it's that accomplishment of the actual project, and then having other people see it. And like Asia, I use Instagram a lot. So having people comment on it and enjoy it made me feel confident to keep going, I think. And also, yes, like more people contacting me officially and saying, I have this project. I think because I was doing design before under a different name before I moved to Baltimore, and I didn't continue with it because it wasn't as steady. And I think once I started working here and doing the type of design I do now, which is focused on renovations, it was very different. And it's definitely like a bigger influx of people who need help with things. And I think that's like all that I need to keep going, is just like knowing that people need help and enjoy the work.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Another thing, I was really shocked early on at how many people that would reach out to me for saying, hey, I've always wanted to do this and I never knew how to get into this, and can I intern with you? Can I shadow you? And so I had a lot of people that were willing to give me their time for free and just to kind of learn as I was learning. And so, I mean, that was another point that it was kind of like, okay, like we got something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And now we have watching. We always have high school students. We have a lot of college students watch every week. who are at the point of like figuring out like what they want to do, and exposure is everything, right? You don't even know that someone's doing interior design, that's a field you get paid for, you know, you can, and people procure. So I think it's just great points you all are making. Let me ask this question, which came in through a text message that we received, which is, how did you think about building capital for your business? Did the capital come from the clients? Did you build capital from working? How did you go about, like, you know, everyone says you need the money to start, or maybe you don't need that much money. So talk about that. How did you build capital as entrepreneurs?
You want to start, Tiffany, or?
Sure, I'll start. I didn't, let me say that.
You didn't? Okay, all right. That's all right. The good confession is good. Confession
yeah,
is good.
I mean, I made money from my projects and, you know, tried to be smart about the way I charge my clients and what I charge them for, and, you know, money that's coming in from them. If I need to get samples for things, like, I'm using the money from the project. So I think it for design, maybe it's a little different than in other fields, but I think when you start, you actually don't really need very much money. Like, you need to know how to do your trade and, you know, create designs, and whether that's hand drawings or using free software or using paid software that you have access to. I don't think you actually need a ton upfront to create interior design or architecture work. I think it's mostly just having the tools to actually relay what you are thinking to your clients. And there's plenty of free resources available for that.
That's really interesting. This is a great, I mean, it's great to know, because there's some people like, oh, I need to have that like that account, because I'm going to need to show the people what I'm telling them about. Asia, how about you? How did you?
I think this is funny because, I mean, I talked about going back to work, and my whole reason for going back to work, one, I had 2 children at the time, and I basically used my job. I leveraged my job. So the income that I had coming in from my job, I had, you know, I remember the first day I went back to work, my feet had already been wet. I was not prepared to like get back into this. I was like, this is not, I can't. And I remember calling my mother the first day, my feet would not move out that car. I was like, I cannot do this. And she said, you know, this is just a pit stop. Like, you go in there, you write down 3 goals that you want to accomplish before you leave, and, you know, do that. And those 3 goals was like, hey, it was very like, you know, it was money driven. It was like, hey, I had a Beetle at the time. And I mean, if you know, when I first started, I was like, you know, hitting all stores. I couldn't fit a rug in my car. It was a convertible. I had to drop the top so many times. So I was like, okay, so I need to get a truck. I need to be able to save up some money for, you know, household rent, things like that. And then I want to be able to just have some savings, which is unrealistic when you're working, you know, a 9 to 5 that doesn't really pay that well, and you have children. And so literally the only thing I got accomplished in that time was the truck. Everything else was just like, I just got to bet on myself. And so I actually, the same, like, you know, Tiffany said, like, you don't, the benefit of being in like interior design field, like, you don't need a lot of money to, I mean, obviously there was things like I was trying to get done, like, hey, I wanted to purchase a camera because I couldn't afford to hire people to do the photo, you know, the photographs. So I would, you know, buy that. So like, while I'm at work, I'm trying to accumulate these things so that when I got into this field, that these tools that would help me grow and expand, I would have them. Yeah. And I didn't get all of them because sometimes I just was over it. But at the same time, it was, you know, it was that. So like, our clients actually fund the project. So we typically, I mean, as long as we got gas and food, you know, that's all the fuel we need, right? So I didn't have the money either. I'm gonna be honest. I was working job to job, project to project. You know, that's how my money was. And so yeah, that was how I did it. You don't need much money.
That's really helpful to know, because so many people may say, you know, I'm a creative. You know, I now know from listening to Tiffany and Asia, I want to be an interior designer, and to know that you can just get started, but, you know, what you also said was you both learned under other people. And so there's opportunities in that way. I'd love to get to this question, which is coming on Facebook again, which is people wanting to know, how do you manage your time and boundaries as an entrepreneur? You're both in a profession where you are very passionate. Tiffanni said, I would do this all the time, but you have to set a boundary. So how do you set those boundaries as entrepreneurs? How do you carve out time for yourself, but how do you also make sure it doesn't consume you? No time for yourself. Okay, all right, Asia, I see you shaking your head. No, okay.
I guess that's like a matter of balance. And I always tell like people like balance doesn't exist, it's prioritizing. So because I think we in creative fields that we love, I could do it all day like Tiffanni, you know, and it doesn't feel like work. And so, I mean, boundaries, I think it's a loaded question in the sense of boundaries, what it could be with clients, you know, that was something that you had to learn. And, you know, when you start learning the skills of actually running a business, because a lot of creatives don't know that, you know, like we feel like we're creative, but at the same time, this business is 90% business and it's like 10% design, if you ask me. And so I feel like, you had to learn those like skills that you learn from at a job when they give you that employee handbook that says, hey, these are our SOPs, these are what, you know, what we do. And like, I have to operate as if I'm a business. And I was always really big on it, especially just being a Black business, because I know like, you know, the stigma that people feel like they have a lack of respect for you, especially a woman in business. And so I started to hone in on the business aspect, like, you know, learn things from working in other businesses and like, hey, I need business hours. Like, I have to, you know, start carving out time, not for even just myself, but my children. And so, you know, those were just like lessons that I had to, I mean, it took a long time to kind of like, you know, get clients to understand that and respect your time and, you know, all of that. But it just took time. I still feel like, you know, it's hard, you know, because at the end of the day, you're the person that's running this whole business from beginning to end. So it doesn't turn off for me. Personally. It's either, you know, I hate vacationing because all I can think about is work, and I can't ever, it just doesn't turn off.
Hate vacationing, beaches.
Yeah.
No.
Because all I can think about is how much I got to do and how much people are depending on me when I get back. Right.
I hear you.
Just, you know, it's hard, but it can happen. Those boundaries, I mean, you learn them as you go.
Yeah. How about you, Tiffanni?
The same thing. So I'm also terrible at like taking breaks. Going on any kind of vacation, I'm always thinking about, well, what do I have to do when I get back, and how am I going to walk away from this for a couple days? I think for boundaries, like Asia, I had experience doing, you know, basically following other people's protocols, right? Whatever field that was in, there's always a set of rules. And so I think when I started doing, especially with commercial design, I kind of had to put those rules out up front. Just be like, this is the time of the day it's best to contact me. You know, I answer emails at this time. The hardest part is when there's a deadline driven project and people are like, your client is nervous, right? So they're contacting you all the time. Even when like you'll get phone calls and it'll be like 7 o'clock at night and you're like, I am not answering this today. Like this can wait until the morning. I think just you really have to stick to it. And that's the hardest part, especially with like people's ability to text you, to message you on Instagram or Facebook. There's so many avenues to reach you that it's really hard to kind of say, no, I'm not going to do that right now. But you have to have any kind of like sanity, basically.
No. I mean, you're just saying that, but the boundaries, we always hear about, you know, even you have to force yourself, especially you as creatives, like you just said, you know, you would do it all day, every day, if you didn't slow yourself down. The one question I have that one of you is on Facebook asked, which is, as a designer, what stops you from playing the comparison game? Like, what stops you from being, getting into that game?
I feel comparison, I always tell people comparison is the thief of all joy. That is not my ministry.
Yes.
I feel like as creatives, we all have something different to bring to the industry. No designer is the same. That's the whole point of being a creative. So, I mean, your intellectual property is your intellectual property, And so I don't know. I just can't operate in that, and that's not, I don't know. It's not because we all different.
Yeah, I think that even if you are a person who's like always on Pinterest or Instagram and looking at other people's work, there's always something about it where you're like, oh, I would have done this differently, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's inherently just something that creatives feel, where they're like, well, in my design, I would have chosen this color, or I would, want less of this thing. And I think there's, no one's design looks exactly like another person's, even if you're talking about within a certain aesthetic. It's like I looked at Asia's work and like I haven't seen other design that looks exactly like hers, and I don't think there's a lot of design that looks exactly like mine. But I also think that if you're actually running a business, like you intentionally don't want it to look like other people's, so you make decisions that will make your work unique.
No, absolutely. I've said this on here, like Burger King is never like, you know what, I want my burger to taste just like McDonald's. No, because they come to McDonald's to have it taste like that, and Burger King have it taste like that. So it's true. Like you don't need to compare the market. I mean, it's a world of abundance. There really isn't these limits. Asia, you want to say something else?
I mean, because we also get in this career with our specific niches, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's all about originality and knowing like who your market is and who you're marketing to. So
Mhm.
I think it's hard to be like comparison now, and we can talk about comparison in the sense of like what people achievements are, that's a different thing. But like as the, just on the creative aspect, no.
No, not at all. I when we were preparing, I got to see all of your designs and realize the places where you have made your marks in our community. Could you talk about like some of your favorite projects? I saw some of them that were like my favorite projects, and I was like, man, I wondered why. Like, I love being in that space. It's so beautiful, like so aesthetically pleasing. Tiffany, anything like brings you like joy to think about, like that you have created? Like I mean, she loves all of the project. Asia loves every project she works on. But just like a couple of highlights where people are like around town in Baltimore, in the DMV, where they can see your work.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So because I focus on commercial food, there's a lot of places that I feel excited just to go to. I've done a few projects at the Whitehall Mill Market. The first project I worked on there was white tea. And as a tea lover, I feel like I'm always there, but also that was my first food stall project, and that was exciting because it was a stall and it challenged me to design on a smaller scale, and also like want to make it just as exciting as a space that you could walk fully into. I really, really love designing the original Urban Oyster space, which isn't open anymore, but I feel like it was my first commercial space. And so, my heart is still tied to that. And I'm going to be working on the new space that Jasmine Norton's opening. So I'm excited for that prospect as well. I think that's one of the reasons that I love commercial, is because like I can go into it whenever I want. And with residential, I work on a project and then like it doesn't belong to me anymore. But with commercial, it belongs to everyone. So
And you did Layers Loft, right?
yes.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful space. I've actually used that so many times just because of like this aesthetic. Yeah, no, Amanda's been on, Jasmine's been on, every company you just named has been on Entrepreneurship Matters, and we love their spaces. So cool. All women-owned businesses, two Black women-owned businesses in that trio. So like just huge beauty that you're like. I love the combination of the work. And so Asia, what what are some of your favorites?
Ah, my goodness. It's hard. I kind of envy Tiffanni for the commercial aspect because I feel like, those points you make is like, we actually been wanting to pivot into commercial more, but we do a lot of residential. And it's so hard when people ask me that. I don't know if it's because I evolved in dog years, but it's like after 3 months, I'm kind of like not connected to, like, obviously I think for me, if I would say my favorite project would be probably because like the clients, we had a great working relationship.
Sure.
that blossomed. I don't know. We are worst critics. I'm like 3 months in and I'm like, I would have totally did something different. I mean, I hope any of the clients not want to hear, I still love,
Don't worry, we have a large audience watching today. So some of them are, don't worry.
Yeah. I'm proud of the work that I do. I just can't, I think I want to say maybe it's a project we did a total of 10,000 square feet of a whole home, and it was so challenging that it allowed us to grow in so many ways, contract wise, client relation, wise, and and just being able to have full, complete creative control, which is, I feel like it's so hard because I feel like I've been spoiled because so many clients just allow me to do that anyway. So I had to create an opportunity to allow clients to be involved, push them to be involved so that, it's not just, a space for me and what I love. And, so I don't know. I think maybe if that was that, probably, I don't know. I don't really have one that I'm like, oh, that one was
no favorite child loves all of the children, all of the projects equally. No favorite. I love it. And but what I would say is that so much of like what you bring to the table, like you bring to life in places, people just give you license to do all these great things because they trust your creativity and your work. So, but huge fan of both of you and your work. The one question that was posed to us came in on text, which is, what's the biggest challenge about being in your industry? So you don't need any money for startup. Now y'all work a lot, but what's the biggest challenge of being in the interior design industry, would you say?
I
Tiffanni,
think
what'd you
that
say?
in terms of, I'm not sure if you know, but are they asking in terms of like running the business or in terms of the actual design work? Because I think there's two different answers for sure.
Did not put clarification, but let's go with both of them. Let's go with both.
So I think in terms of running your business, it can be really isolating because it's you have your ideas for the design, you're the touch point for the project in terms of like the entire aesthetic and a lot of other things that go into the project. And, some days I'm here in my office by myself for the whole day and I don't see anybody. If I get to go out on a job site, those are like exciting days because I get to interact with other people. In terms of the design portion of it, I think it's just, we're always kind of designing in a vacuum for a little while where we're like getting our ideas together. And then the challenging part of that is like presenting it to somebody, being like, I hope they like this. I really love it. I'm very like emotionally tied to it. And knowing that it's going to change once you start to bring other people into it. But I think I love collaborating with other people. It's one of the reasons that I've focused on renovation is because it is a lot of collaboration with the clients or with the contractors. And I think like, even though you have to kind of like let your design fly and grow wings, it's really wonderful, even though it does change. It's really wonderful seeing what can come out of having conversations with other people about it. So it's challenging, but it's also really rewarding.
Yeah, I never thought of like you come up when you're coming to meet with us when we're trying to have something designed. I didn't realize like you all are nervous. Like, what's our reaction going to be to what you propose? How about you, Asia? What's the biggest challenge about being in the industry?
I think the hardest thing for me, I think the scaling aspect, I think, which is, for most businesses, it's always challenging because I understand, just like Tiffany said, like collaboration is like a big thing for me. I understand that there's different numbers and, I dream so big and I have so many, goals that I want to, it's like I want to accomplish, but I can't do them on my own. And so scaling the business to allow that to support all of the different things that we're trying to do and, being able to be consistent. I think consistency is hard for me because you get so, especially like when you're a small business, like you're running so many different things and trying to be efficient in all things. And it's just not possible when you don't have as many hands on deck. And so I think, and just giving people the ability to understand that collaboration is key. I always tell people, like, even get into the commercial sector, like, hey, like, if I want to switch over to hospitality, like, like these people are going to be asking these questions about, like, when I say that, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of us, especially as Black creatives, I'm sure Tiffany can attest to this in some way. I feel like, especially as being like, I feel like Black designers in general, and I'm gonna just be honest because this is our plight. There's this thing, like, I feel like we just got invited to the cookout, as I like to say, because this is something that, again, we weren't introduced to, and, that the others been doing it for a while. And so I think, just understanding, I mean, I started mentoring because of it, just learning, going to the school of hard knocks and learning all the way, and then being able to pour into other people to get ahead. I think for me, it was like, hey, like, I need you guys to understand, like, we don't all have to be in that, place where we need to be like fighting for, like, oh, I need to be doing what you're doing. I need to be, like, we can come together and do more and be better. Because if you get that dream, what happens if we get that dream opportunity to do like this huge project and you're not efficient because you don't have the people to help supply it? They're going to ask those questions, like, what does your team look like? Is it just you? Do you have support and things like that? And so I've put a focus on, which is why it's Oblige Interiors Turn Oblige Interior Design Group, on building a design firm that allows other creatives, not just Black creatives, but, a diverse group of people who are strong talents that may be facing like some, adversities and trying to like grow their business. Not unfortunately, but I've had the pleasure of, having a lot of reach from our platform, growing our platform organically, and I get so much business that I can't take it all on. And so my mind was just like, hey, like we need to like figure out how we can come together and make this expand a lot further and be efficient in the most part. So I think for me, it's just, the collaboration aspect and consistency.
Yeah, no, I think you made some really, really good points in the sense of like why they're like solo practitioners in law firms and why they're firms, right? And how do you think about like there's more pie when we all, there's more pie. There really is more pie.
Honestly, you can think of, like we have individuals. I'm into a lot of them. You see, especially like there's so many more design firms that don't look like us. When I'm saying firms, not like just, solo designpreneurs, but I'm talking about firms that are like doing great things because everybody understands their role and understand that they, our efforts are better together. And so I just feel like we need to really make a way, for people that look like us to help us all, be a little bit more united in the industry. And so definitely, I'm working on it. So
that's a great idea and great vision. Like you said, I mean, I've worked on many construction projects, many different projects, and all the time. And I will say, I'm always desperate for diverse talent to design the places where I know we are going to occupy. And so I think there's just a huge market out there for you all, and more to come as you continue to grow and expand. The question I have next, which is, so what is the long-term plan? Like, what is your vision for, the best, I will claim this for you both, your best days are ahead of you. So what's the long-term vision for like what your business and your entrepreneurship journey. Tiffany, what would you say?
So my goals are to expand my studio to have at least one or two more designers, an architect, probably someone who does more decorative work, and then definitely someone who like is doing the tasks that everyone needs, which are like measuring, doing the drawings, like things that allow the whole team to work together and kind of be on the same understanding of the project. Whether that's like a business manager or an office manager or whatever. I think right now my focus is having another designer on board. I would love to have someone else to work with on my projects because I do get like way more than I can take on, and it's hard because then you have to wait and like tell people, well, I can't work on this for, a couple months, or I can't work on this until the summer or whatever it is. And I think that while there are lots of design firms, like people are contacting you for a reason, and you don't really want to like turn them away, especially if a project sounds really great or like a really good fit, right? But if you're already in the midst of doing so many things, you can't start right away. So I'd love to expand and to have a bigger team so that I can take on more work that I love.
No, it's great vision. And I think you're right. There's nobody going out around giving extra hours in the day. So you need the extra hands to be able to multiply the work. How about you, Asia? What's the long-term vision for your business? You talked a little bit about
I talked about
yeah.
So I think it's the same. Expansion always. Exposure leads to expansion. So I feel like the bigger we grow. So right now our main focus is just diversifying our revenue stream in many ways, becoming a household brand, and just trying to do something that is profound enough where it's like, hey, like we feel like we made the mark and left a legacy in this industry. So I think that's pretty much it. Expanding. I definitely want to expand, not just in interior design, but we are also in e-commerce. I have a Blodge Home, if you guys didn't know. So that recently launched a couple of months ago. And so expanding that brand as well. So continuously to, brand and to allow us to diversify our revenue stream.
I love it. We have confirmed that my favorite Oprah is watching. So this is a great opportunity. So as we think about investors of all types that are on, from the likes of Oprah to the small fries like me, what would you say is what we all can do as consumers, as individuals that get to pick interior design firms, as those who could just tell the word? What can we all do to ensure that you all as business owners not only survive, but thrive, multiply, build those empires? Are there things that we can do to be supportive of you? So Tiffany and then Asia.
To be supportive, I think is probably, and this is something that like I'm always focused on with my prospective clients, is education. Really understanding like what the different facets of design are before contacting someone to work with you. There's so many different kind of fields within design, right? So like Asia and I don't do the same thing. She does more styling and interior decoration and like also would work on residential design versus like I'm gonna do more of like renovation design. So basically what I do is anything you need a contractor for, like that's what I'm focused on. But I think having an understanding of what you need and what the people you're reaching out to do is the first step. And then also like having an understanding of like how much things cost. Asia said earlier, like it's kind of a luxury field, but it should be accessible to everyone. So I think just having a realistic budget for things and and doing some research beforehand is really helpful.
Excellent, excellent. Asia, how about you? What can we do to be supportive?
I think to expand on what Tiffanni said, I think education is key. I'm really big on education, but being attentive enough to understand what the value is before, actually diving into it. I think that's just probably the simple version of what I would say education. I feel like there's so many people that are truly oblivious. We get it all the time. In every element, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, so we take that time to really make sure that we're educating people and making sure, they understand the value of what we have to offer. Because it can be frustrating trying to, embedding is a big part of it. So, that allows us to alleviate those issues. But I think the education aspect, definitely, for sure.
Absolutely. A great point. Because you probably get a lot of people like, I want your work, but I actually don't know what you do. Or I don't know the full scope of it.
Or think they know.
Tell me this, I have two questions, but before I get to them, I want to make sure people know how to get in contact with you. Tiffanni, I have all your websites, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your Twitter. Can you give them all to everybody? And we're going to put them in the chat as well as on Facebook.
Sure. My website's Reidy Creative. It's REIDY creative.com. And then all of my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that is all Reidy Creative. So really simple.
Excellent. Excellent. Asia, how can people get in contact with you?
Our website is obligeinteriordesign.com. Instagram, AA_interior stylist. Facebook, I believe it's Oblige Interiors. I think I recently changed it, but I think it's Oblige Interiors. And I think that's all. I don't have Twitter. I don't use LinkedIn. So yeah.
Not yet. But let's ask this question. Your best days are ahead of you, but what has been your greatest accomplishment? Has there been a moment when you've said, I'm doing the right thing? When was that moment? I'm on the right path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Tiffanni, have you had that moment? Asia, have you had that moment yet?
I think for me, like I said, I'm really, really big on building together, collaboration and unity. And I think my biggest thing have been being able to supply work for other people who are passionate, that have the same passion as me. So growing and being able to supply jobs to people who felt like they could never, giving people chances. And also just believing in them in the educational aspect of, allowing people like, oh, they want me to mentor so much in terms of like how to grow the business and things like that. So I think my biggest, accomplishment, I feel like, for that is just being able to pour into others, to help them get to those places that I didn't have help getting to. So yeah, definitely pouring into others.
That's huge. That's huge to be able to be in a position to help somebody else and expose them and get them into the field. Beautiful. Tiffanni, how about you? What's your greatest accomplishment?
I would say it's probably, I think day to day, it feels like happy clients, but also I have a really big focus on working with local businesses. So I try to incorporate small businesses into all the projects that I work on, like whether that's sourcing products or whether that's having a local craftsman make something for the project. So for me, that always feels like a good accomplishment, is just, it's easy in interiors to kind of order from wherever, right? From other countries, from across the country. In California, there's a ton of products that come from there. And if I can incorporate another business within my project, like that feels like a great accomplishment to me. I love collaborating with local craftspeople and bringing their work in so that it's celebrated alongside mine.
I love that. I love how, and people are saying outstanding Black female entrepreneurs, blessings as you achieve. I agree with them wholeheartedly. The people are commenting. I mean, y'all are getting a lot of love, so don't worry. I'm gonna send you the chats and the Facebooks and all of that later, so you can revel in it. But no, I love how you just put, and we know that when we hire local firms, they hire local firms, they hire local people, and that all is to all of our collective benefit. And I'll be honest, I'll actually pay a premium if I feel like my community gets better because my dollar was spent here than spent somewhere else. That's me. I think that a lot of people are more thinking about that. I'd pay more for my community to be better. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that that's beautifully stated. Let me ask you this. This is for my college students, and I saw your questions in the chat, and I told you I would get to it, which is one piece of advice you would give somebody that is watching that's just getting started, or just about to get started, or having that feeling in their gut that, or be feeling that burnout. What's one piece of advice you would give to them? So Tiffanni, Asia, what would you say to them?
I would say write down what you want to do and then just start, because it never is going to feel like the perfect time. And I think just getting your feet wet and figuring it out along the way is kind of what all of us do. Is I'm friends with and network with like a lot of other small business owners, and we all are always going through the same things. It's just learning as we go. And you have projects where you'll learn something completely different and have a different experience. And there's never like a perfect time to start. So if you are really passionate about something, just start.
Excellent. Don't worry. And we have people that are going to pass y'all names along. So this is great. Well, business comes from Entrepreneurship Matters. That's also another intent of this. Asia, how about you? What's your piece of advice?
I think to piggyback off of what Tiffanni said, I'm always advocate of like wanting is permission enough. People always, I get the question almost every day, how do I get started? What to do? Just get started, do your research, write down your business plan, because a lot of people feel like this creative field doesn't require a business plan, and it does. And be patient, because the work is the shortcut. A lot of people try to emulate other people's processes and, I want to get here in this amount of time. It takes time. It's like really slow and steady, so one foot in front of the other, and just be consistent. The consistency part is really, really, really important. And confidence, definitely. I have someone that works with me that's on the team that struggles with that. And I'm always daily like pushing her to like, hey, like I need the world to see that, So market yourself, believe in yourself. As cliche it is very important to do all those things.
Yeah, write it down and believe in yourself. Two great points. First of all, let me say thank you, Tiffanni and Asia, for being on Entrepreneurship Matters today. You two are simply phenomenal. I hope much business comes from this, and much collaboration and the like. But many blessings to you for all the work you do, and just continuing to be amazing. Let me give a couple of announcements, and then we're going to be, we'll wrap. We will come back next week with two entrepreneurs from the IT consulting industry. Brenda Watang, she is amazing, Ingenuity Consulting Solutions Group, and Shanda Wilson, another amazing entrepreneur. InShift is her business. You do not want to miss that conversation. Follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Email us feedback, jhconnects@jhu.edu. Thank you to our partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Women-Owned Business, as well as Bloomberg Philanthropies and Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business. Thank you, Asia. Thank you, Tiffanni. Appreciate everything.
Thank you.